Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Lynn Loves You. I'm your host, Lynn Broughton, and I could not be happier that you joined me today. We're in my bedroom this time. In fact, I'm sure many of you recognize my headboard from some of my goodnight tweets. And you might recognize these two cutie pies because I've tweeted their pictures several times. It's my dogs, Lucy Ball and Creamsicle. And I'm going to show you Lucy Ball and Creamsicle because they're actually the focus of this video. But it's going to, I have to turn my phone around to show you. I'm still very, very low tech here on Lynn Loves You. So if it's wobbly or fuzzy, please forgive me. But here they are. There are Lucy Ball. Here's Lucy. Lucy Ball. Lucy Ball, yes. And there's Creamsicle. I call him the Creamster. Creamsicle. Yes, there they are. I hope I've gotten them adequately. Yes, I hope I have. But they're my babies. And a lot of people like talking about their pets, and I do too. And so they're the subject of today's video, like I said before. I'm going to talk about how I got them, who gave them to me, and how happy they make me. And they really, really do. I'm going to start with Lucy. I got her first, so she's going to go first. Now, I don't have a long story about her like I do Creamsicle, but I can tell you that I love her like crazy. She was a gift from the roommate when he moved in 2017. Actually, he didn't give her to me right away. She belonged to him, and so she came with him, and I just was crazy about her from the start. She is so not only adorable but affectionate, and she is really super cuddly. I love that. I think that's the thing I like about it, love her about it the most, is how snuggly she is. And she does this really cute thing. When she sees me, sometimes she goes at me, and I just think it's precious. Now, she is frustratingly stubborn at times, a lot of times. Like if I need to get somewhere and she just won't move, or she'll stand in front of me, or when I need her to go outside and she won't go, and sometimes I have to pick her up and put her out. But I think those are really tiny prices to pay to have such a great dog. So like I said, she came with the roommate when he moved in almost 5 years ago. And over those next few years, after he got his other 3 dogs, Buddy, Bolt, and Dewey, who I want to mention were rescues, because the roommate is a really terrific fellow. I loved her so much by that point, and he knew it, that he went ahead and gave her to me, which I thought was very kind of him. Creamsicle was a gift from God. Now, that's my code for a stray. And I know a lot of eyes just rolled. And that's okay. But I mean it, though. Every stray animal that has become my pet, I've always thought were gifts from God. And I really mean that. Wonderful, lovely gifts from God. And Creamsicle is, I feel like, the epitome of that. So how I got him when he entered the picture was in April of 2021, so 15 months ago. And I was out on my front porch smoking a cigarette, and I have since quit, thank God. These 3 teenagers came up on their skateboards down the street, and I'm ashamed to admit that I wasn't happy about it. I guess I was having some sort of old man moment, but I thought, that's just great. On their skateboards, up to no good. And so I kept peeking out at them. to make sure that they weren't doing anything they weren't supposed to do, which is ridiculous because they weren't going to be doing anything they weren't supposed to do. They were out having fun like they had the right to do. And I was just being nosy, but it's kind of not the point. But it actually is the point because it led to me first seeing the creamster. Like I said, that's what I call him sometimes. At this point in the story, I'm going to refer to him as the future creamster because I didn't actually own him yet. So I looked out, I noticed that they were talking to one of my neighbors, the teenage boys, and I wanted to make sure she wasn't being hassled. With them was this puppy, and he was about at the teen stage as well. And it was the future creamster. He noticed me, and he shot to me like a rocket and acted like I was his long-lost owner and that he was so happy to see me, and he was jumping up on me and wagging his tail and making his noise at me, and it was precious, but I wasn't out there to play with the puppy. So I assumed, that they belonged to those kids. So I looked at him and I said, "Hey, is this your dog?" And they turned to me and one of them said, "No, sir. He's been following us around all over the neighborhood. We're worried he's going to get run over, so we're trying to find his owner." Good kids. And I felt like the biggest jerk on the planet at that moment. And I should have felt that way because I kind of was the biggest jerk on the planet at that moment. At least in my opinion, I was. And so the future creamster, he kept, jumping up on me, and I was petting him, and then he took off. And in about 45 seconds, I couldn't see him anymore. And I figured he had gone and was gone back home. His day trip completed, and the boys didn't have to worry about it anymore. So I headed in the house, and I told them what marvelous young men their parents were raising. And they all said, "Thank you, sir," confirming my point. And I didn't think any more about it. And then that night, one of my other neighbors knocked on the door and said, "Hey, Lynn, I think one of your dogs is out. He's in our driveway. It's that golden dog." Well, that would have been Bolt, I thought, because Bolt is, we think, a golden Chowski, and he's jumped the fence several times because he's a bad boy. And so I ran over to get him and get him in the house, safe and sound. It wasn't Bolt. It was the future creamster. So I told my neighbor, "No, he's not my dog. He's been running the street all day, and he just hasn't gone home yet," which was starting to bother me because we live in a really small area, really very few houses over here. And it didn't make sense to me that in all those hours, he wouldn't have found his way back home, or his owners wouldn't have at least found him if they were looking for him. So I told my neighbor thank you, and I went back in. And the next morning, he was still in the neighbor's driveway. And he ran to me again, and he was happy to see me. And I looked to the sky, and I said, No. We cannot have another dog. We have 4. We cannot have 5. We have a really big backyard, and our house is not small. But, feeding and caring for 4 dogs is really expensive. And it's worth it, but I just didn't see how I would have the resources to feed another dog. And I was still hoping that, his owners were going to find him, or he was going to go back home. Although by that point, I really suspected that he had been dumped. And I still figure that he was dumped. I don't know that for sure, but it doesn't make sense to me otherwise. So he kind of came and went all day that day, and he would still run up to me when he saw me when I was outside. And I felt like such a you know what, that I didn't just take him in, but I had good reasons for not. So Monday morning, he was still out there in the neighbor's driveway, and he ran right to me, happier to see me than ever before. And at that point, it broke me, and I decided that yes, I would keep him, that I would take him to the vet and get him all fixed up. So I did. I got him neutered, and I got him tested for rabies and parvo, etc. And I got his vaccinations started, and I did get them finished, by the way. I had him tested for intestinal parasites, and he did have hookworms. So I'm glad I didn't take him in the house then, because I wouldn't have wanted to expose the other 4 dogs to that. Had him treated at the vet for the hookworms, and I brought him home back when that series was over. And he just fit right in. All the other dogs loved him, and they have had a few squabbles every now and again. But for the most part, they're all just very crazy about each other. Lucy treats him like he's her puppy. She still does, even though he's fully grown now. And it's really adorable, I think, to see her baby him like she does, and to see him love getting babied. And of course, I'm just crazy about him. I think he is one of the sweetest dogs I've ever had. And even the roommate loves him, I can tell. Now, he doesn't admit to it, but I've caught him several times giving him some loving. So he's not fooling me. He's still hung up on Lucy, by the way. Lucy Ball, he'll still tell me sometimes that I owned her first. And I'll tell him, well, I own him now. So no backsies, buddy. She's mine. And so my bigger point being that I've had so many of these gifts from God, many, many, many stray animals that have chosen me to be their owner. A lot of people say that, the animals choose us. And I've noticed that to be the case often. And it seemed to literally be so with Creamsicle. And I've had so many stray dogs and stray cats come into my life that made some of the best pets, including these 2 dogs. One was a border collie named Maggie, who she was just such a bad dog, by the way, but I worshiped her. And another was a pit bull mix named Dottie, who was perfect. And I worshiped her. They were a couple of the greatest loves of my life, and I miss them to this day like crazy. There have been so many cats, way too many. I could never name them all. And some unusual ones, like I used to live in the country, out in the country is what I should say. And in 2001, these 2 Canadian geese came out to this rural area where I lived, and for the winter, I guess. And they never left. They just multiplied. And over the next few years, they grew to well over a dozen. I think there were 19 at one point. And I used to love to see them and hear them fly over the house when they would honk and everything. I thought it was just beautiful and peaceful. One time, this little heifer showed up in our pasture, and we could never find her owner. So, of course, we kept her, and she grew into this very sweet, very tame, gentle cow. I thought she was wonderful, very, very sweet, very loving. Another time, this full-grown cow jumped a bunch of fences in our area, then jumped into our pasture and stayed. I guess she liked our place because she never left. Now, we found her owner, and he was so sick of her shenanigans because she had done this so many times. He'd get her back, and then she'd jump the fence, get her back, jump the fence. He didn't want her anymore, and he wouldn't even let us pay him for her. He was just like, she is yours. So we took her. She was beautiful too. Solid red, but with this little white marking. It really did look like a heart, so I called her Valentine. The most unusual of these strays, if you will, was a wild turkey that came up in 2004, and I was instantly enamored of her. I mean, I'd never seen a turkey in real life, I guess you could say, a living one anyway. And she was adorable, and I thought really beautiful too. And she was really sweet. She would follow me around everywhere. And before long, I had her spoiled rotten. I had her this nice big pen with a roost and a box fan in front of it, and she would just luxuriate in front of that fan. And in the early days, she was happy with hen scratch and grass, but before the end of it, I was feeding her arugula lettuce and strawberries and blueberries and pine nuts and eggshells. And I had a lot more money in those days, so I could do that. And she was worth it, but she was too good for the grass by that point. We had her for 4 years before she passed away. And no, we did not kill her and eat her at Thanksgiving. You'd be shocked by the number of people who think that's a funny joke, even though it's not funny at all. Anywho. So my point really being today, the takeaways, if you will, if you see teenagers on skateboards, they might be good Samaritans in the making, so don't do what I did. Don't prejudge them. I'm sure you wouldn't anyway. And if a stray dog or cat or wild turkey comes running to you like you're their long-lost pal, maybe you ought to take them in and make them a pet. They might be just the perfect addition to your family, a gift from God, you might say, God's or the universe, or just a stray. But they might be one of the great loves of your life. So keep that in mind. Now, on this subject, in the description, I have the numbers for the Humane Society of the United States in case you want to find your local chapter of the Humane Society. You can call that number just in case you want to volunteer time or donate money. And I'll also have the number for our local Humane Society in Palestine, Texas. It's called the BARC Society, BARC. And they are just wonderful. Our local animal control, if they find a stray dog or stray cat running the streets and they pick it up, they take it directly to the BARC Society. And as long as the animal is not sick or aggressive or dangerous, it's not going to be euthanized. They do their best to find the owner and they put it on social media, etc. If they can't find the owner within a certain amount of time, certain number of days, then they rehome the animal, no matter how long it takes. And it doesn't matter how long it takes, really. The animal's not going to be put down. It will be taken in. And if you want to donate money to the BARC Society, I'll have the number there too. It's not an expectation on my part, just in case you want to do so. So before I close, I want to remind you of 3 things. First, you are very important to a lot of people. Second, you matter a whole lot to a lot of people. Yes, you do. And lastly, but most important, I think, You are loved by a whole lot of people, and very, very much. Very, very much. Like I've said before, there are people in your life who would not want to live without you. Please come to know that here and to feel that here, so that in time, when you look in the mirror, you see a great, big, gorgeous giant. That same great, big, gorgeous giant that the people in your life see when they look at you. You deserve to feel that way because you are wonderful. Now, I need to ask you for 3 things too. 1, please like this video. Every like makes my videos more visible, and I want them to be seen by a lot of people. And next, if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to Lynn Loves You. I am almost to 100 subscribers, and it might as well be 1 trillion subscribers. I am so proud of this. This is a milestone to me. I do want a very large base here, and I'm not too proud at all to ask for it. Not too proud at all. And one more thing, please follow me on Twitter. My handle is LynnBroughton4. That's LYNN BROUGHTON and the number 4. I promise I will put a smile on your face every day with my goofy, sparkly, sunshiny tweets. Some people even say I make their day. I don't know about that, but some people on Twitter really do love me. You might be one of them. So until next time, this has been Lynn Loves You. And I am your host, Lynn Broughton, and I love you. And so do Lucy Ball and Creamsicle. I hope you saw them. Anyway, thank you for watching.